Throughout our long history, it is craftsmen that have defined the fabric of our lives, from the clothes we wear to the buildings we live and worship in. Down the centuries, their skills have described the detailed story of this land, leaving us with a priceless legacy.
And even now, when you look closely, you can see things like the veins in the arm up there. These are actually the finest tapestries in the world.
There are still guardians of these crafts working today who are dedicated to taking the long tradition of these skills into our modern world. And in this series, amateur enthusiasts, some without any experience at all, are given an intensive education by a master of the craft.
I want you to create a fabric which you will actually make into a product.
This is what I've been dying to do since we started.
But can they master even the basic skills in a short space of time, however intensive the course?
I don't think I could feel failure when I've done that.
And as well as teaching them about the craft, what will they learn about themselves?
It's actually changed my life doing this, and it's not just about learning a new skill anymore. I didn't think it would connect with me sort of in my soul as much as it has.
There's one element to fabric that makes it different from almost everything else, which is that it's next to us. It's right next to our skins all our lives. And from the day we're born to the day we die, we're in contact with fabric.
Weaving is one of the oldest of all crafts, dating back tens of thousands of years. The Romans introduced hand looms to Britain 2,000 years ago. And by the 15th century, British weaving was some of the most accomplished in Europe. There are fewer than 200 people in the UK making a living from hand weaving. And whilst the process might be ancient, many of today's hand-woven fabrics are absolutely contemporary. I'm travelling down to a workshop on a farm in West Sussex, which is where our 3 trainees will study, under the expert guidance of master weaver Margot Selby.
The more I think about it, the more I realise that I know very little about weaving. I love fabrics and sort of assume that I know how they're woven, but actually I don't think I've even seen anybody weave, let alone understood the process.
Margot is one of the UK's foremost weavers, and as well as having astonishing skills, she's also built a strong commercial brand, and her busy studio in central London supplies top stores all around the world. But for the next 6 weeks, she'll be based here in the countryside with her students.
Hello.
Hello.
This is, actually, the truth is, this is quite intimidating for me, but anyway, nice to meet you. I'm Monty.
Nice to meet you.
I realise I know practically nothing about weaving, so for me, this is going to be quite a lot to learn and take in. What's the core of it? What excites you about it?
You're building a cloth from scratch. You know, you're completely constructing something from cones of yarn through to final cloth. It's not an instant reward that you get when you're weaving. You know, there's a lot of delayed gratification.
What's the serious time that you would have to devote to it to become a master weaver?
It took me 5 years before I felt comfortable that I could think of my ideas, have a vision, and then think, oh, I know how I'll do that. It's more than a hobby. Becoming a weaver it's a really serious
commitment.
That's a really good word. You have to be really dedicated to it.
Our 3 would-be weavers attending the course all profess to have the necessary commitment to master this, the most complicated of all crafts. Holly Berry is a London-based ethical clothes designer. She graduated from art college with a first in fashion and has always been fascinated by weaving.
Fabric is a really important part of my life, and it's something that is really personal because it's right next to our skin. I think it creates that emotional connection with me because of that. I think in fabric, saying that though, I haven't tried weaving before because it's not something you can just sort of get a book and teach yourself how to weave. I mean, I might fall flat on my face, and that might be why it's a dying craft because it's so hard, but hopefully I'll be able to do it.
Treff Davis now works at an art centre in London after being made redundant from his job as a business analyst for a city firm.
The job I used to have did involve a fair amount of sort of being organised, keeping track in my mind of all the different strands of my work that were going on, And I think for me that's going to be really handy.
Treff's ultimate ambition is to go into theatrical costume design.
A lot of the stuff I started doing was based around like wanting to use fabric. Wanting to do weaving seems like a really natural progression to that, because it's like going back one stage further to want to actually make the material that you're making stuff out of.
Mumtaz Begum Hussain is a published craft writer from London. She makes her own clothes and doesn't believe in following the rules.
I'm not a perfectionist. So if I'm sewing something, or if I'm knitting something and I drop a stitch, I don't go back and pick up the dropped stitch, I just make it part of the design.
Mumtaz wants to challenge the traditions of the craft and infuse it with her own idiosyncratic style.
Nice to meet you. Hello, I'm Monty.
I'm Holly, nice to meet you. Hi, I'm Mumtaz.
Nice to meet you.
Treff.
Treff, nice to meet you too. You ready?
We're really ready.
There you go. Okay, come with me. I'll tell you where you're going to be. Come on in. This is going to be your home for the next 6 weeks. And this is Margot.
Hello. Hi, welcome to the Weave Workshop. These are your looms, and you're going to be spending a lot of time on these over the next 6 weeks.
The trainees now have to learn a new and extremely difficult set of skills. Starting with the fiendishly complex process of setting up their looms, they will be taught the fundamentals of weaving before their progress is assessed on a final project. Whichever one of them is reckoned to have produced the most accomplished piece of work will then win full access to a loom in Margot's London studio for 6 months. And there he or she will be able to continue their education in the craft.
This is the warping shed. And what we're going to do this afternoon is we're going to make a series of 3 different warps. A warp is the yarn which is going to go on the loom. This is a warping frame which hangs on the wall. As I wind the threads round these pegs, the most important thing is that I'm winding across, which is where I go over and under with the threads at both the bottom and the top. And it's this cross which keeps all the threads in order. Then I'm going to take this warp into the studio and onto the loom.
Each trainee is given their own warp winder.
A single basic fact unites all fabrics, and that is that they're made up of 2 different types of thread. You've got vertical threads, which is the warp, which are interwoven with horizontal threads, that is the weft. And the loom is the means by which these 2 types of thread are interwoven together so that they hold strong.
That sounds straightforward enough, but there's no room for any error. Make one tiny mistake and it always comes back to bite you.
Feeling good? I'm in great sympathy for you.
I have to admit I'm a little bit lost. I'm good with the doing, you know, like the procedure. I think I've got that down. I'm just into the sort of slow act of getting it done.
But Mumtaz is already running into problems.
I feel like, all right, I just completely forget, and I'm thinking,
I want to stand with you. Let's do a few together. So,
okay. So where does the under ever start? I'm thinking this is going under.
Yeah.
So then, but
so you keep following the rest of the group.
Okay.
You seem to be hitting one of the themes of this, which is repetitive actions, extremely repetitive actions.
Yes.
Each one of which matters every time.
They all have to be exactly right.
Right.
Holly and Treff seem to get the hang of it quite quickly. Then it's my turn.
So if we come up here, we go like that.
No.
No, we go up over there. We want to go over.
No, hang on. We're going to get into a mess.
Go there.
Yeah, but so you see the
No, we aren't going to get in a mess. I am going to get in a mess. There is something slightly restricting and sticky about this whole process, isn't there? I have to say, I feel a bit sort of
restrained.
tied. Yeah, I do. I feel like I'm wound round by a yarn, and if only I can just untangle with my fingers.
But look
get
how
that.
beautifully neat and straight these
Yeah.
yarns are, and there's something really wonderful about that. You know, these yarns are in order, and they're going to keep us and our designs and our creativity in order.
Now, the next thing that the trainees have got to do is take the warp that they're winding and put it onto the loom. Now that actually is quite a slow technical process. But this is not all just preparation. Even though it can take days to get right, it's all part of weaving. And that mindset that enjoys and understands and masters every aspect of the process from the very beginning is essential if they're to become competent at weaving.
To help us understand the intricate business of setting up a loom, Margot breaks it down into a series of steps. First, the warp is wound onto the loom, using the marker thread on the cross to keep all the threads in order. Then the warp is cut so that it becomes a series of separate threads, which are then passed through a set of heddles.
Each heddle is on a different shaft, and it's by lifting these shafts in different combinations that I can achieve the different patterns.
Finally, every individual thread is pulled through the reed.
Now I'm tying it onto the front of the loom. Now all the threads are taut and I've got the backbone of my fabric.
If this all seems complicated, that is because it is. It is time-consuming, takes great concentration, and there are no shortcuts. Depending on the yarn, the width of the fabric, and the intricacy of the design, it can take anything from half a day to a week to set up a loom, and that's before you can begin to weave.
I feel like I'm in endless fathoms of water above and below me, and if you're not careful, you almost feel panicky about it. And I suspect that for this craft, more than any other I've come across, that what you have to do is just take each process as it comes. It'll be very interesting to see how they cope and whether they succumb to the same sense of panic that I feel.
Despite the complexity and skill, even a highly experienced weaver is unlikely to earn more than $28,000 a year from weaving alone.
When I very first started weaving, I think for probably 5 years I earned less than minimum wage. It's really, really difficult to make a serious living out of weaving. It's not impossible, it takes time, but you can get there in the end.
Back in the barn, Momtaz is in a muddle.
I don't know what's happened here, but there seem to be a lot of threads which don't have any position. That one doesn't seem to have a home.
I hope that it gets quicker with practice, but even then it's quite an enjoyable thing because it's very rhythmic and you kind of get into your own space while you're doing it.
It is quite logical, and once you sort of get a little bit of it, you've then got 120 more times to practice it. I'm really desperate to get on and get weaving something. I want to hold something in my hands.
A professional would take a day to wind the warp and set up the loom for this cloth. It's taken the trainees double that, but now they're all set to do what they came here to do. That's weave.
So what I've done is I've woven 3 samples which I now want you to create on each loom. These samples are all about structure and pattern. We're not looking at colour yet. On this loom, shafts number 1 and 10 do the basic plain weave. So I'm pressing pedal number 1, which will lift all of the odd shafts. The shed is the passage that we're going to pass the weft yarn through. Put the yarn across like that, depress it, and then beat it.
Operating a hand loom with its various pedals and shuttles requires coordination and total concentration.
So far the most difficult bit has not been to get these 2 shuttles tangled up with each other.
Yeah, I find it quite useful to put it on top of the loom while I'm using the other. So, Momtaz, are you happy with that? Do you want to start?
I'm not entirely sure. So when it says pedal 2,
yes.
Does that mean I put my foot on pedal 2?
That's right. Holly, how do you feel about this honeycomb fabric?
I'm really nervous.
Why are you nervous?
Because I still haven't figured out how I know which pedals to press in what order.
The basic principle of weaving has remained the same for thousands of years, but there are many different kinds of looms, and on these looms, different pedals lift different shafts. The gap created by raising the shafts is called the shed. And it is through this shed that the weaver passes the weft yarn, which is attached to a spindle. And by changing the pedal combinations and using different coloured yarns, the weaver slowly builds up a patterned cloth. A lifting pattern tells the weaver when to change the lift and the number of times the weft crosses the warp. And this process is repeated over and over and over again.
I've noticed that I've made a mistake. I snapped one of the warps.
The thing that I'm still having trouble with is that when I turn the thread around at the end of the warp every time, because I'm going across and then turning, it's still too tight at the edges.
If you pull in those edges too much, they will start to break and we will have to fix them, and that's a really good lesson because it's quite tedious. I think, Treff and Holly are doing extremely well. Holly is weaving as though she's been weaving for years.
I'm so proud of it. It's the first thing I've ever woven because I think it's true. That's truly amazing. It's like genius weaving that I've never even seen before, and I'm not really understanding how I'm doing it, but I am definitely doing it.
Treff, he really gets the technical side. He understands what the yarns are supposed to be doing, when and why, and he really understands how to create the patterns and the structures, and I think he'll be great when he gets going under his own steam.
After 45 minutes, Holly and Treff have managed to replicate 2 of Margot's samples with very little help. But Mumtaz is still struggling to get to grips with the mechanics of the loom.
What you want to do is repeat the whole pattern in navy.
The second lot is...
The structure remains the same.
But I'm doing 4, 5, 6, 7 for the first lot. And
you're always doing 4, 5, 6, 7 throughout the sample. I think Mumtaz was the weakest out of the 3 of them, but it's more that she just lacks in confidence, and she's already struggled so far, and so that's probably why she's feeling even more nervous than the others.
Understanding the structure of the pattern has been a bit more difficult. Here, you're doing, 3, 4 things at once, so it is requiring a different skill.
It's time now to see if the trainees' first attempts at weaving to a pattern have been successful.
Could you press the tension pedal so that we can let the warp off?
Margot cuts each sample from the loom so she can compare their work.
So, Holly, we'll start with yours. This sample looks pretty perfect. I can't see any faults in that. That looks really good. Well done. Now, in this part of the pattern here, you've suddenly changed from having a navy black background with a white pattern on it to a white background with a navy pattern. Moving on to you, Treff. Again, this isn't badly woven if you don't look at the edges. I think your next challenge is to really perfect your weaving technique so that you get a lovely straight edge. Mumtaz, in this one I think you had a bit of trouble concentrating, didn't you? You're supposed to use 4 ends of the white yarn, but here I can actually count 6 ends of white yarn, and we're getting something quite random happening.
Okay.
How do you feel about these first pieces of fabric that you've created?
Incredible, and I know they're not perfect, but they were never going to be perfect.
I'm quite impressed with all of us.
Yeah.
As the trainees begin to grapple with the basics of making hand-woven cloth, they are embarking upon a tradition which goes back thousands of years. Weaving made a giant leap forward in the Middle Ages as tapestries became the perfect showcase for a weaver's skills. And here at Hampton Court, one of the royal palaces of Henry VIII, are the finest examples of hand-woven tapestries in existence.
Tapestries existed primarily to illustrate stories, and they would hang on a wall, and sometimes they could be truly enormous in size. They were based upon cartoons that were drawn and painted and then placed beneath the loom. And to do this, just like our trainees, they had a warp and a weft, but the weft would return back over the warp. Therefore, in the final tapestry, you only see the weft. And it's astonishing the levels of skill that they achieved in creating these images to an incredible level of detail.
Here in the Great Hall, we can see one of Henry's most prized possessions, the Abraham tapestries.
It was Tudor bling. And you walked in here and you were meant to be bedazzled. Bright colours, gold and silver, and so valuable. In fact, even today, they're the second most valuable thing in the country after the crown jewels. Henry commissioned these tapestries at the birth of his son, Edward. And this was the biggest thing in Henry's life. His lineage was what he was passionate about. And they tell the story of Abraham, who was promised children late in life. So this was very resonant to Henry. And he was prepared to pay a huge sum of money for them.
If our trainees are discovering that weaving is a slow and painstaking process, spare a thought for the weavers of these tapestries, who worked long hours to complete less than ½ an inch a day.
These grey areas apparently would have been bright metal, gold and silver, all at eye height, because not even Henry was rich enough to cover the whole thing with gold or silver. And even now, when you look closely, you can see things like the veins in the arm up there, and the extreme detail. I love the way that the plants are so beautifully and almost tenderly portrayed in this very, very fine weave, all done by hand. These are actually the finest tapestries in the world.
Although the tapestries were only bought out and hung for special occasions, periodic exposure to the sun hasn't been kind to them.
Light is the enemy. Any fabric, when exposed to bright light, will fade, and these have faded badly over the years. But of course, the rear of the tapestries have hardly faded at all. And through the genius of conservation, they've been able to analyze the color at the back of the tapestry, balance it with what's left on the front, and then by projecting light onto it, recreate how the tapestry would have looked when Henry first bought them. It is just extraordinary, the difference. And these yellows and blues and reds leap out at you, and you can see that on the scale of it, and in lives that weren't as blasé and as overloaded with sensory information as ours, this was extraordinary. It is extraordinary.
Getting an accurate picture of how the colours would have originally appeared is not only educational, but also helps conservationists redress the inevitable damage caused by light. And the most faded and decayed areas of these priceless tapestries are painstakingly repaired.
What are you fixing there?
This is a 16th century tapestry, so one from Henry VIII's collection. I think when you're actually working on these tapestries, when you're conserving them, that's when you obviously see them in a way that nobody else does. You see the features really up close. It's particularly when you look at the faces, and it's so beautiful. And when you think that this was just all woven in, it's just amazing.
There's one main thing that I've got from this visit, other than the beauty of the tapestries here at Hampton Court. It's the importance of hand weaving. Because in the whole range of weaving, from a rough shirt to a glorious tapestry, the one thing a machine just can't do is give you character and personalities. And sometimes that comes with flaws, but it always comes with humanity.
Our trainees are not tied to the loom. And to show them the possibilities that the craft has to offer, Margot has organised a visit to a contemporary craft fair.
Up until now, I've probably thought of weaving as quite a two-dimensional thing. I know that's a bit cheeky.
I don't want you to think of weaving as a flat thing. Weaving can be three-dimensional.
Hand-woven fabric is not cheap. A scarf could easily cost £150. But the trainees are becoming aware of the amount of work and skill that goes into each and every piece. And you cannot shortchange individuality and care and artistry.
The standard of the work here is absolutely incredible. Talking to the weavers, each of them has taken, you know, the traditional things that we're only just starting to see and done something completely different with it.
Laura's found a way to make her small pieces of fabric very, very precious.
by sort of encapsulating them in resin. The standard is like really high, but it's original as well. It's things you haven't seen before.
Beautiful colours in the wall. You get all these optical effects.
It's really good for visualisation and to sort of start to recognise the language and sort of make me realise that I am understanding what I'm learning. It would, like, something I'd love to experiment with and push is how I could make a living out of it.
To have a hope of mastering this craft, it's crucial to understand the architecture of weaving. Back at the barn, Margot introduces the students to some of the wide range of yarns that they might use.
This yarn is a pure copper yarn. So using the right constructions or the right weave structures, you can get some really three-dimensional surfaces.
Over the next few days, the trainees experiment with a variety of textured yarns.
Going really fast. It is really intensive, but I'm only going to do this once, so I just need to take it all in.
Treff is proving to be a naturally gifted weaver and has even managed to work out how to reconfigure his loom to achieve the texture he's after.
I'm re-threading everything down here so that I'm moving a different pattern now.
Meanwhile, Mumtaz still hasn't grasped how to attach the warp to the loom.
If you gave me an empty loom, yes, I've got on the sheet what to do on the loom when you get there, but actually I still have to set up the loom. So in a way I'm missing that really vital bit of knowledge. Yes, I can do weaving, but I can't do weaving.
It's a couple of weeks now since I saw them, and apparently Holly and Treff are forging ahead. They've really got the gift and have got the knack. Mumtaz is having more trouble, and that means she's falling behind the other two, which apparently is frustrating her, and also she's not mastering the basics.
Hello.
Hello. Hi.
This is a nice industrious scene.
These are some of my samples. Some of them are still on the loom.
I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel it's very exciting seeing
super
this.
exciting.
I mean, that's lovely, isn't it?
This is the giant honeycomb, which I've become completely obsessed with.
I like that. Treff.
Hiya.
How are you?
I'm all right, thank you.
And how are you finding the mechanics of this? The sort of...
I love the mechanics of it.
Yeah.
I really enjoy that part. So my fabrics are all in my book, and this was one of the other ones I tried, which is a mixture of horsehair and copper weave.
Blimey, I'm impressed. I'm really impressed at all this. Right. How are you, Mumtaz?
I would say I can't tell you one technical thing I've grasped because I didn't really grasp how we set up this loom.
Right.
When I'm faced with anything technical, it's just completely alien to me. And I am trying really hard.
I mean, it does
I
beg
can't grasp it.
the question, is that you've chosen about the most technical thing you could possibly do. So what was that all about?
I was more interested in the results.
Right.
I knew there'd be a technical side, but I wasn't going to let that worry me. But I honestly, at this stage, I'm thinking, will I ever be able to understand that?
I think that what you're doing shows amazing application. We come from an age and a society that everything wants to happen now and intuitively, and you just do it and it flows and it's exciting and it's fun. We don't really value or learn as children, actually, hard, slow, complicated, difficult things.
Yeah, something else to take away from
Yeah, exactly. Lack of self-confidence.
Speaking to Monty made me feel so much happier about what I'm doing and what I've done so far. I just have to do things at my pace, and if I'm slower than other people, if it takes me longer to learn things, it just doesn't matter.
It's now coming up to halfway through the course, and Margot has some news for the trainees.
The next project, it's quite exciting. It's quite a big jump from what you've been doing here, because I want you to create a fabric which you will actually make into a product. What do you think about this, Holly?
I'm really excited. This is what I was waiting for. I mean, I'm a bit daunted by it, but this is what I've been dying to do since we started.
If their products are good enough, they will go on sale at a prestigious craft fair, which is being held in my own hometown of Hereford. Now, they've no automatic right to be there. Only the highest quality material is accepted, and they've only got 2 weeks to prepare. Mumtaz has decided to make a laptop case.
You know, this isn't hobby craft, it's not hobby weaving, it's really professional craft.
Treff is going to weave fabric to reupholster some antique chairs. And Holly has chosen to make a jacket.
It's brilliant if I can do it. If I can make what's in my head, it's beautiful. But I don't know, there's absolutely no reason I should be able to do this. But, you know, I'm going to give it a good crack.
In the process of his research, Treff has discovered a secret weapon.
Treff is showing incredible initiative. He, without any sort of suggestion, he went and downloaded a program on the internet which would show him how to visualise his weave structures before he goes to the loom.
Although not everyone is so enthusiastic about Treff's high-tech approach.
As far as I'm concerned, Treff is cheating, and what he's doing is completely unfair. He's gone ahead, he's downloaded a computer program that makes patterns for you and tells you what they look like. And me, I'm struggling with charts.
Do you know what he's doing? Treff is only doing exactly the same as what we taught all of you on the Colour and Weave.
There hasn't been
It's amazing that he used his own initiative to do that. I think it shows incredible interest and passion in what he's doing, that he's actually gone home and researched that. That's his strength.
It takes a professional 3 to 4 hours to weave a metre of fabric. Treff and Holly are up and running, and their fabric is slowly starting to grow. But meanwhile, Mumtaz is still struggling to set up her loom.
Truth be told, there is actually this thread hanging out, and there is a header in here with no thread inside. But that's 2 that aren't working, and if it's 2 that's not working, that's actually better than 1 not working, because it'll be even. It won't matter, I don't think.
As he continues to weave, Treff's virtual design for his seat cover gradually becomes a reality, and he's hooked.
I'm loving this so much, and it's exciting, it's very creative, and it's quite peaceful.
Peaceful or not, over the next few days they all work flat out to meet the deadline for the craft fair. Holly's decision to make a jacket means that she has to weave more cloth than the others, and she also faces the brutal task, once the fabric is completed, of cutting it up into pieces to make the panels and sleeves.
Started weaving at 10 to 8 this morning. I'll be weaving until at least that time tonight. I wouldn't say I'm stressed, but I'm not relaxed enough to just be cautious. I'm really worried about threads snapping. I'm worried that it's all going to go wonky, but one thing at a time. Today's just weaving centimetre by centimetre.
Holly has, whizzed through and just churned out lots and lots of fabric. There's a lot going on. There's so many different stripes, so many different colours. Whereas Treff has stopped and had quite a lot of consideration along the way, and he hasn't forced himself to produce. I think Holly had more of a sort of anxiety to produce enough fabric for her jacket.
After 2 weeks of designing, sampling and weaving, it's time for Holly to cut her material from the loom.
It's great to get the opportunity to turn it into something. So when you're weaving, you sort of think, I don't want to chop it up, I don't want to make it into something, I just want to hang it on the wall and enjoy it, but this is only going to be a skill that can be sustained if you do stuff with it. And I just absolutely love it.
Mumtaz's fabric is also coming along, but the 2 loose threads that she didn't think would be a problem have come back to haunt her.
Now there is this irregularity, but it goes through the whole thing.
But it is a fault.
The thing was, I did it consciously because I spent 2.5 hours trying to fix the fault, and I couldn't fix it. And to me, I felt
anyone who knows anything about weave will know that that's a fault. It does detract.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can get away with making that a feature. I think we might have to try and work around it.
I did it very consciously, knowing that I couldn't I tried and tried.
I mean, you could make the products like this, but it just seems a shame when you've put so much energy into the fabric, and you have got some beautiful bits of fabric here.
Trying to get it right every time is the key to mastering any craft. But Momtaz is finding this a hard and restrictive path to tread.
I actually am fed up of weaving. I work with how things go, and I'm not after perfection. It's handmade. I made a mistake, it's got a mistake in. Just because the craft market needs it to be really perfect, and because the first thing was the weaver's going to know it's a mistake, I'm not selling to other weavers, I'm selling to other people who will appreciate the product. So I fixed it. I didn't want to fix it, and it still looks rubbish, so I'm still going to have to hide it anyway, and it just feels like I'm suddenly doing things that I don't actually want to do.
It's been 2 weeks since the trainees were set their task, and all three have managed to weave enough fabric for the craft fair products. They now have a day to cut, sew and knock their merchandise into shape. Although Holly always knew that she'd have to cut her fabric up in order to make her jacket, the reality of seeing 2 weeks' work in pieces has hit her hard.
It's really upset me cutting my jacket. It just looks much less impressive in like these little pieces it's in now, and it's not finished, and it just looks like scraps. It's been sort of making me think, you know, I'm a fashion designer and I'm making a jacket and I should be really happy. But I'm not happy. I was happier when I was weaving it. So it was making me think, you know, am I supposed to be doing fashion, or am I supposed to be doing this? Or am I just really tired?
I think she's just really tired. The big day has arrived. The Hereford Craft Fair attracts exhibitors from all over Europe. And it's a real test to see if the trainees' products will stand up against workmanship of the highest quality.
It's only the second piece of fabric that she's ever woven.
Wow.
The last time I saw the trainees, I realised they hadn't actually made anything. They'd done some samples, and some of them were really good, but nothing that was a finished object, and certainly nothing that could be sold. So to come here and have to set up stall, sell to the public alongside experienced craftsmen is a huge step. Very interesting to see what they've done, and also how they coped with that big jump.
Treff is receiving a lot of attention for his highly professional-looking chairs, but as yet no sale. I wonder whether his computer-assisted design with its resulting uniformity might be putting people off.
Hello.
Hello, are these all yours?
They are.
That's very, very, very impressive. They look incredibly professionally done. I wouldn't know they were hand-woven. They look as though a machine could have done them. I suppose what I'm suggesting is, in order to sell the idea of that, you need to show slightly more obviously handmade stuff, which could then be modified in a subtle and complex way.
Yes.
In order to sell yourself slightly more instantly. Brilliant.
Since cutting up her material, and consequently falling out of love with her jacket, Holly doesn't have any great hopes of selling it, but she does have a backup plan. She's made several cosmetic bags from leftover fabric, and she hopes that these will have more commercial appeal. And she's the only one of the three who makes a sale.
I was worried in case it wasn't.
So that's £30.
Thank you very much indeed. It's absolutely beautiful. Look at the work, and it's lined with leather, and it's just really tactile. It's beautiful.
Hi.
How are you? How are you getting on? How's it going?
I can honestly say I haven't very rarely enjoyed anything more. I really got into it, and the parts of this that I was so worried about, the technical side of things, really began to resonate with me. I totally know who I am as a weaver now. Where I want to go.
Brilliant.
Despite her flawed fabric, Momtaz has managed to come up with 2 laptop cases.
Momtaz, how have you got on?
For me, the challenge was in setting up the loom and obviously getting myself to weave, because last time we met I hadn't mastered that.
Great. So you've got the foundations that you can build on. So the next stage, over the next couple of weeks, you'll be able to build on that.
Yes.
Brilliant.
Fresh from their first taste of commercial exposure, the trainees, Margot and I, all meet up at Margot's London studio so they can be briefed on their final project.
I think you're ready to go on to the next and final thing now. You will be asked to make a 3-metre length of fabric. All 3 of you will be judged by a member of the Master Weavers, but only one will be selected and given a 6 months internship here with 100% access to the loom downstairs and pretty constant access to Margot. Not 100% because she's a busy woman, but she will oversee it, mentor it, and also, really crucially, help you to the market. So basically, if you're serious and you want to go on to either master this or to make it a career, it's the best chance you could possibly have.
Okay.
You're being very quiet.
I'm stunned.
Why?
Why not? It's stunning.
I think the prize is amazing. I totally do want to become a weaver.
The best thing about the prize is this experience doesn't stop the day after we finish this project.
I'm sold on it. I absolutely love it.
Holly, Treff and Momtaz now have 2 weeks to design, make up samples and weave their 3-metre length of fabric.
I'm worried about them all being able to weave 3 metres in the time they've got. I think what's important is that if they have to get to a point when they're not going to complete 3 metres without rushing, that they should focus on the quality rather than the quantity.
Holly has set herself a particularly big challenge. She's decided to weave a double cloth, which means that both sides of her final fabric will be equally as important.
If you're weaving a double cloth, that means you're going to be using double the number of threads as any of the others. 2 layers of cloth, it means twice the amount of weaving.
I didn't know it meant twice the amount of weaving.
Yes, because 2 picks, one for the top and one for the bottom.
Meanwhile, Momtaz has decided that simplicity is her safest route to success and is going for a plain weave. But she's hoping to impress the judges with her use of colour.
I'm going to try my absolute hardest, but there's trying your hardest, which is what I'm doing now, and there's enjoying it, and I'd rather enjoy myself more than be bogged down in the technicalities of trying to do something out of my realm.
Holly and Treff are soon sampling some ideas. From the outset, Treff has found the design aspect of the craft to be his biggest challenge. But mindful of the reaction to his work in Hereford and drawing on a recent holiday to Cuba, he's planning to inject some personality and vibrancy to his final piece.
The turquoise colour in the yarn appears commonly in the cars. Light blue gets used all the time in doors and windows and stuff. It's a really beautiful place and I really loved it there. So I'm sort of using that a bit.
Momtaz is tied up in knots again.
Well, the yarn is extremely fine and breaks really easily.
There's 6 separate sections within this that I need to separate. I think I've got to thread these all individually 1,000 ends. Don't know when I'm going to weave, basically.
It's the start of the final week and all 3 are exhausted. Treff, in particular, has slowed right down and is spending a lot of time sleeping. It has taken Momtaz 2 whole days just to untangle her warp and another 3 to set up her loom, so she is very behind.
My life is too precious to me to be doing this at the end of the day.
Holly is easily outweaving the others. She's already produced 17 samples in 2 days, and weaving at a rate of 1 metre a day, she's already started on her final fabric. But there is a price to pay for spending 12 hours a day hunched over a loom.
I'm just in quite a lot of pain, and then I think, oh, my back hurts, and then I think, oh, I'm going to have to stay in this position for another 8 hours, and then I feel like crying. I'm just so sore, I can't believe it.
However, it's Treff who's in real trouble. And the problem is nothing to do with the craft. Just as he's about to start weaving his final fabric, there's a major setback.
I suffer from a mild form of bipolarism, which just means that I have periods of like depression, periods of manic energy, and it's controlled by medication pretty much all the time. But if I get very tired, then I can, you know, struggle a bit, which has definitely happened sort of the last couple of days, unfortunately.
With just a handful of samples to show for the past week's work, and sunk into an exhausted darkness, Treff seems to have given up.
I'm just really heartbroken to see Trev sort of so unmotivated, and it's just not him. I just want him by the end of today to be ready to weave, and if he can weave like 10 centimetres or 5 centimetres today, I think that'll give him the courage and focus and just determination and belief in himself to just weave a metre tomorrow.
Maybe, you know, as soon as he's better, it will all come back.
Yeah.
But
It's
I
just
just
not
want
right
him
at the
to end on a high. I really want him to end with something beautiful.
He's lost hope, but like we just can't. Like, he's got to see his cloth. He's got to.
It's the final day before the judges are due to arrive. Having almost completed her double weave, Holly is on the home straight. And against all her instincts, Mumtaz has bravely stuck with it.
I think in terms of my future and my pride, I need to actually just do this. I definitely didn't come here to give up.
And there's good news from Treff. If not yet his former self, he is back behind his loom.
We just need to get you weaving. We need to show something tomorrow. Really, really need to show something tomorrow. No, don't do that.
I know,
I want to try and get this loom so that you can continue to finish the fabric.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try my very hardest to do that, to get this loom so that you can finish your fabric, because you're such a bloody good student and I need you to show a piece of fabric.
The evening before the judges arrive, Holly is ready to cut her fabric from the loom.
I love those big squares, look at those. It's absolutely gorgeous. Oh my God, the colours are lovely.
It's taken Holly 3 17-hour days of solid weaving to reach the 3-metre target by the deadline. Treff is now going to have to work late into the night if he has any chance of fulfilling the brief.
I really wanted to finish this project with something to show for it. Up until Monday, I didn't for a moment doubt I would do. But then when I started to feel really awful, I thought that I was never going to do anything.
The day of judgment dawns.
This is my fabric.
One end for you.
Yes.
I like the way it feels. I like it.
Doesn't it feel gorgeous?
Do you mind if I just have a little...
It's called a body cloth, so it's very
It's
much
cashmere
about
and
the touch
merino.
and having it next to your skin. The back is different to the front.
Reverse.
That's a pretty clever clogs thing to do, isn't it?
Well, Margot taught me how to do it.
I mean, goodness me, you've arrived there.
Look at it.
And how's that journey been?
Just unexpectedly, weirdly, like, exceptional. Just really knocked me off my feet.
You've loved it, haven't you?
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Well, no, don't be sorry, because it's interesting. It's good, because you're not sad. You see, that's what's good. I don't mind you crying.
No.
It's great. Is that...
I just haven't been able to stop crying all week, really. It's ridiculous now.
And is it?
All right.
But is it? Okay, tell me. Let's talk about it. Are they tears of surprise, of joy, of bewilderment?
It's actually changed my life doing this, and it's not just about learning a new skill anymore. I thought I'd learn to weave, but I didn't actually think I'd be good at it. I didn't think it would connect with me sort of in my soul as much as it has.
I would buy the scarf off you.
Would you?
Absolutely like that. There is no question about that. Treff.
Hiya.
How are you?
I'm all right, thank you.
Well, that's good to hear, because I gather you had a bad few days.
I did. I had a bit of a rough week, but
Yeah.
I'm feeling really good today. Margot says it's thanks to weaving, and to be fair, she's probably not entirely wrong.
Well, that's good. That's good. So, but it has meant you haven't been able to do as much as you wanted.
No.
Treff has miraculously managed to weave 2 metres in just a day, but that is a full metre short of the stipulated length.
Do you think you've done enough to give yourself a fighting chance of being chosen?
Well, win or not, I'm going to continue weaving. It might take me a little bit longer to sort of get started and whatever, but there's absolutely no question of it. I don't think I could feel failure when I've done that. 6 weeks ago, I wouldn't have had the vaguest idea how to start.
Now, Mumtaz, how are you? How's it been?
I think I've been pushed to the absolute limits this week.
In what way?
Just perseverance.
Let's see where we've got to. That's very beautiful. You have ended up with what I think a lovely piece of fabric.
There's no room in professional craft, there's no room for mistakes, it's just perfection, it's got to be perfect, and that's why it demands such a high price, and that's why it's such a different thing. And I've just realised that basically.
Well, that is surely, though, is right at the heart of this, is that in order to express yourself fully, and when I say you, I mean us, all of us, you have to master technique. And it takes as long as it takes. And if it takes 10 years, it takes 10 years. And that's just life, you know. But you got there.
6 weeks ago, Holly, Treff and Mumtaz had never so much as touched a loom. Today, the cloths that they have designed and woven will be judged by Michelle Bowen from Arts Council England and Angela Swan from the Worshipful Company of Weavers.
Here we go then.
Each of them has achieved a huge amount. Each has produced beautiful work, but only one of them can win the precious access to continue their studies in Margot's studio.
Shall we start over here?
Yes.
Which is Holly's work. First of all, just what are your reactions?
Beautifully woven, fairly simple structure.
Right.
Although it's a double cloth, which in itself is beginning to get a bit complicated. It's not perfect, but it's very beautiful.
I mean, for me, when I came in and sort of saw the 3 pieces together, this one does stand out. You could immediately kind of place this into a gallery or commercial setting. I think the colours are beautiful, and it would be something that would be very attractive for the consumer.
All right, that's interesting. Let's go on to this one.
It's a very different...
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Complicated.
Very complicated.
It's not 3 metres.
Absolutely, which is why...
But I'm not holding that against it.
No.
Yes, look at the front and the back of the cloth.
That's spectacular. I love that.
I love the accent of colour right the way down the middle. That orange in the middle is beautiful.
Is that technically difficult?
Absolutely fabulous piece, technically.
OK, let's just leave that one and come on to Mumtaz. What do you feel about this piece?
A very early stage development.
To her eternal credit, she stuck at it.
That's the time element, isn't it?
She's got a lovely eye.
Right.
But I would say it's not always the people that start the fastest that get there in the end.
I asked the trainees to leave us while Michelle and Angela make their decision.
So can we, to make your life easier, discount Mumtaz?
Yes.
Yes.
OK.
Which still leaves a tough decision.
It's going to be genuinely very, very difficult, actually. They're 2 amazingly strong pieces.
Yeah. I think it's worth saying, what a joy to find 2 people doing this after 6 weeks.
It's amazing. Holly's work, I find that I have seen it before. I find the colours are just a bit too acceptable. They're very beautiful, but it is a straightforward double cloth. Treff's work has got an edge to it. If you get really, really close to it, the way he's used the floats to float over and under, he's diffused the warp and the weft, therefore he's got his yarns going this way and he's coming out that way. And he's obviously worked it out himself. I find it a very, very attractive piece, and I can see that sashaying down any catwalk, menswear collection, and looking very, very credible.
I'm coming to an opinion, and what's so interesting is, earlier today, I had absolutely no doubt.
Yeah.
But listening to you 2 talk, I've actually changed my mind listening to you. If you can come to a decision, I'd like you to do so now. Which one would you like to give it to?
I want to give it with Trev, definitely.
I will support Angela's decision. I will say Trev. He does deserve it, you know. I mean, it is an amazing piece of work.
It's really, really difficult.
Yeah.
But I just think this is stunning.
It's quite rare when you find someone who can actually do something extraordinary.
I think the way the colour sings and it works with the structure, I think it's a very well considered piece.
So, time to reveal the result.
Judges have spent a long time deliberating, and I just think I should say on record, they thought that all three were really good, but it was decided that the winner is Trev.
Oh my God!
Well done, everybody.
Very good. Very good.
I am genuinely completely shocked, because if I was them, I would totally have chosen Holly. Just because I just loved what she'd done. And so I am completely like, I can't believe it. I know I said I was going to carry on weaving, and I would, definitely. I would have anyway. But the opportunity and the ability to start because of this is just incredible.
I can't stop weaving. It's just in me now. It's just what I do now. Just because I'm a weaver. I've got this amazing piece of fabric, and I should be standing here crying now. And I bet everybody's surprised that I'm not. But I'm going home with something so amazing, and it would have been wrong for any other outcome than the one that's happened. And I'm not just saying that. For him, it could just quite radically alter his whole life course. And I would in no way wish to have taken that away from him.
Well, that's been a sort of supercharged 6 weeks emotionally. It does seem extraordinary that we've unearthed somebody who seems to have a real genius for weaving, and somebody else who, through application, has become extraordinarily good at it. But actually the most interesting thing comes from Mumtaz, I think, when she said that there is such a difference between amateur and professional weaving has such a high standard. And I know for myself, I'll never look at any fabric in the same way again.
Next time, we're taking an art and design tutor, a stage carpenter, and an electrical engineer to the splendour of Hardwick Hall to enter the world of the stonemason.
You have to have the confidence to hit the stone, that's the key.
And whilst they chip away, I look at some of the history behind the stonemason's craft.